Hey everyone, I'm Aaron Potratz.
And I'm Nathan Hawkins.
We are the Shrink Think Podcast.
Baby.
Enjoy the show. Hello everyone, I'm Aaron, and this is my friend Nathan.
Hello.
We have a podcast.
Yep. And it's really widely listened to as well.
Yeah, widely.
Widely.
Wide as the day is
Wide.
deep.
Okay. We needed to start recording.
Not had coffee yet.
I have not had enough.
How are we? I've had like 2 sips.
Yeah.
Brain's
Well,
not
apparently
working.
1 cup's not helping. Or 2 or whatever it is.
There's always more coffee.
Yeah.
I love there was this guy in the Blazers years ago, had a picture of him on a boat, and he had a giant cup. It was like this, and he's like, I'm cutting back to 1 cup a day. Just a big smile. I'm like, that's what I want to do. Just,
It's a 4-gallon cup.
it's just 1 cup.
Entire Starbucks brew. Like the whole store brewed 1 cup.
Exactly. All right, shall we?
Oh, man.
You ready for this?
I guess so.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Shrink Think Podcast. We are pretty excited today. We were just talking off camera. If you're not watching on YouTube, we have a YouTube channel. If you're listening to the podcast, head over to our YouTube channel because you can watch. And we got some behind the scenes stuff. But we were just talking about how unenthused we were because the coffee had not yet hit our veins.
Still hasn't.
It still hasn't. We'll get there eventually. So I'm sure by the end of this episode, we will be riveted and excited as usual.
Talking really fast.
Yeah, right. But right now, we're here. So thanks for joining us. We've got an interesting topic today. I actually had a staff meeting yesterday and was talking with my team members about some of the dynamics that they've been experiencing. You know, we do sort of like case consultations in this thing and help each other provide different perspectives and advice, tools, whatever. And they came across this really interesting dynamic that I think, as I was listening, I was like, oh, this is really good. And actually, one of them was like, you guys should do a podcast on it. So I was like, Nathan, here's our material for the week. So there's a dynamic, I think, that is really common, at least around here. I'm sure it's common elsewhere in the United States, maybe outside as well.
Only specific in Portland.
Yeah, definitely, for sure, here in the Portland area.
In 4 households.
It's really common. Where you have an unsupported wife, and we're calling her unsupported. We'll kind of unpack what that means, because there's a whole dynamic that's going on for her that causes her to, when she's unsupported, to take some action that contributes to the dynamic because she is with a passive husband. And so this passive husband, obviously, then you can tell by the unsupportive wife, is not doing what he needs to be doing to contribute to the family or the household. And so you get this whole dynamic that's happening where she maybe once needs him to contribute, whether it's taking care of tasks or helping out with the kids or supporting the family somehow, right? Let's assume that he's got a job. He's like going to work and coming home. So he's providing in some way. But he's not contributing, right? It's like, okay, that's the bare minimum in a sense. And I'm not saying that that's not important. But there are more things that happen inside of a family that require just more contribution. And so this passive guy, oftentimes what we see is this guy has like an overbearing mother or a helicopter mom or a really hypercritical mother. And so he kind of learns, develops this passivity through growing up because he's afraid to do something for fear of a failure, criticism, upsetting mom, getting a reaction, or worse, even some sort of like abuse, on the other side. So this guy, this adult man now is passive, probably a nice guy, If you were to talk with him, you'd say he's really nice, easy to get along with, and probably in other contexts, he does things. He does, give in. He does do stuff where he's contributing, he's got a personality, he's active, all that kind of stuff. But then, for whatever reason, like inside the home, it's like, where's that guy, right? And so this wife is like, I now feel unsupported, right? Because I got all these responsibilities that need to happen in the home, and where's my dude? He's like absent. He's like on his iPad, or he's on his phone, or he's checking the stocks, or watching games, or whatever he's doing, playing video games. He's just sort of checked out. He's not really present. And so then the result is she will often nag or remind or overfunction. Yeah, we're trying to not call it, not trying to be pejorative about that, because that's kind of natural, I think, in many ways. If the guy's not doing what he's supposed to be doing, then of course the other partner is going to be like, hey, I need your help, step up. But you get this pursue withdraw dynamic that we know really does not work. So he's withdrawing, she pursues him more, and the more she pursues, the more he withdraws. The more he withdraws, the more she pursues, right? She overfunctions, and then it's like she gives him tasks. Hey, I really need you to pick the kids up from school today, or whatever. Well, she gets a call, and he's not there, and so she's got to do it, right? And so it's like you can't just you can't give him the stuff, and then he doesn't do it and be like, well, okay, I mean, I guess he failed at that. I'll just let him have those consequences, because the kids are just sitting at school like unpicked up. Right? Like you can't. Some of these things, like, they affect people's like lives or their safety, so you can't do that. So of course the women are like, I got to step up and do this thing, but now they're carrying resentment. They're angry. They're resentful because not only did their partner not do what he needed to do or said he was going to do, but then they had to do it for him, right? And of course, then you try to have the conversation, and you're trying to be as respectful and communicative as possible, but you're a little bit pissed off, right? And so that comes out. And of course, this passive guy who is kind of hypervigilant and aware of all of the nonverbal cues that you're giving him, if you're this woman, he can sense the tone, he sees the look on your face, he gets the undercurrent that's happening, and he shuts down, right? He gets flooded with shame or fear or whatever it is, and he withdraws, right? And so round and round we go down this toilet bowl of a cycle, and that's what we want to talk about today, because if you're listening to that and it's relatable, welcome aboard.
Welcome aboard indeed. Yeah, I think of an image kind of, or metaphor kind of came to my mind. If you were going to load a boat, let's say you had 5 packages, you had to get the packages on the boat. Because there's another piece of this dynamic, I think, that Aaron hit on the end of it, and I want to honor it because it's where people get into the argument. So, say in this case we're going, the lady, she's like, we got to get everything on the boat. Okay, and now the tone already disrupted him a little bit. So he's grabbing a bag, and now the time frame's going. We got to get him on now. Here we go now, right? So she's now in a hurry. He's getting more nervous. She's putting stuff on the boat, and then she starts going, it's not going on there fast enough. So she starts saying, like, you got to grab both. You got to grab 2. What are you doing? And he's like, like, I'm not, and then just, like,
just shut down.
Fine, you just do it. Or whatever. If he says anything, nothing I do is right. It's all wrong. You're so critical. And then, bing bong, el dunzo. So I say that because there's actually more of a back and forth. I don't want to have it be that this lady's just doing everything. Like, I'm picturing, like a movie in my mind, but I'm not going to share it.
You're definitely right. I think there's usually a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of conversation usually. And that, I think, is the frustrating thing, is that, maybe there's conversation and he says he wants to help out, he will help out. And so we have this agreement, and then it just doesn't happen.
Yeah, from his perspective, every time that he tries to help out, she's critical about it.
Correct.
He didn't do it right. There's something wrong with it, whatever. And from her perspective, it's like, you just take initiative. Get off your, like, there. And also, though, like, she'll have a right way to do it. She'll have it, because here's the thing. Everybody has an opinion on what, the way something should be done.
Yeah, and the hard thing is giving someone the ability to do something because you're not doing it. So it's like, oh, good, I don't have to do this. But you also have to kind of let go of a bit of the standard of how it gets done. Now, I understand I've had some of these conversations with some people where it's like, our daughter needs to take this medication or get this, have this needle, put in her with this medication. That needs to be done a very specific way.
Yeah.
There's no like, well, I kind of did it. Like, what do you mean you kind of?
Let's get out of the realm of, well, kind of.
Right. So we're gonna break this up. I think the dynamic is clear enough. Which one do you want to start with? We can start on the woman's side, or we can start on the guy's side. But we're gonna break this into a couple of episodes because there's a lot to unpack. And as we were talking about it in our staff meeting, and as you'll see today, it is nuanced and it's challenging because you're not just dealing with, well, just do this, or here's an easy fix. You're dealing with somebody on the other side that you have to be aware of and sensitive to.
Well, in both people in this couple dynamic have to understand two things. One is that their partner actually is trying to connect. And two, their partner has to figure out on their own how to navigate their own distress. So in the guy's side, that distress is the flooding that he feels where he doesn't do anything. On the lady's side, it's the distress of needing something to be done and then getting anxious to like have it done a certain way or in a certain time frame or that kind of thing. Because it's funny because on that side of things, I think of delegation. A lot of people have trouble delegating because they don't. They look at it like, why would you do it if you need something done right? You got to do it yourself. That whole thing.
Yeah, and I would even say, just to add more to that, I'm in communities with a lot of like business owners and executives, people that are sort of high up or have a lot of responsibility. And it's funny because you would think that those would be the people that have the easiest time delegating, because they're in charge and it's like, oh, I don't want to take care of this. I need to pass it off. But actually, a lot of times, the most capable people have the hardest time delegating. Yeah. Think about that. Hear that. If you are that person, if you are capable, right, you may have a really difficult time delegating because you want it done well. And so if you're passing it off to someone else, you automatically believe it's going to be done less good. And that's frustrating or difficult for you. But that's part of what I think Nathan is talking about, is you've got to accept that as part of the equation.
Yeah, the ownership and the heart of things, right? So and maybe let's start with the lady on that side of things. So because we kind of just did. So I think what I try to tell people when it comes to relationship, men and women, is that the lady's in charge of the heart and soul of that relationship. By in charge, what I mean is she's just more tuned into it, right? So, and guys are not. And I don't. People probably didn't disagree with me, and that's fine.
Generally, I think that's absolutely true. Yeah.
Yeah. Guys are looking more at the future. They're looking more. They're driven more by vision.
Correct.
And that's just the way it is. Anyway, so when the lady's got the heart of it, and she's seeing the way it should be done, she's owning how everybody feels and is connected to whatever the problem is. So she's taken into account little Susie's experience of this thing, Johnny's perspective on blah, blah, blah. And, like all the kids, her own, and also her husband's.
And all the needs of everybody as well. Like, well, this person needs this in order to, be successful over there. Or this person has friends that are coming over, and so this needs to happen in order for that to happen. It's like all of those details she's typically good at seeing and understanding, and she's thought through.
Right, and she's found a path. Like, this is the path that needs to happen. Whatever the path is, she's gone, like, this is the path that needs to happen, right?
So it's not just do this task as the guy hears it. It's do this task because it means all these things to all these people.
But she does not say that.
Correct.
And on his side, he's, and essentially, because of the lack of understanding, and we are still focused on her, but, which is why I'm saying this, less that's communicated gets him to be, he's just a dumb, he's going to fail. Because in his mind, he did the task. Well, in the lady's mind, that may be true that you did that, but it didn't actually accomplish what we were trying to do overall. So, fail.
Right. I bought you flowers and took you out, right? Like, great, success. We have a great relationship. Nope. Right?
No.
You were mad at me the whole night. Right?
Yeah.
But I did the thing.
Yeah. It's classic. Like, so I'm thinking of larger dynamics, like when she's, got to do an appointment or something that's going on, like actually makes more sense if a kid does. And, and he has to just, she's like, she figures out, and this is where the part of the unsupported nature comes in, because she already knows that she's learned, because this is not like year one of marriage, we've got kids running around. She already knows that he needs to be specifically told to do something, right? And because if not, then we're pretty much screwed, So she's, go get Johnny at the school at 2:30 or whatever, right? Because I'm going to go and I got to take Susie or whoever over to the doctor appointment, so I'm not going to be able to pick him up because then blah, blah, and that's about good. Well, that's what that's pretty much what he's hearing, right? So he's like, okay, get Johnny at the school or whatever at 2:30. And something happens because he doesn't normally do that, right? So for whatever reason, he gets Johnny at the school, but at 2:45, right? It's not good. And Johnny, what does Johnny do? Johnny's like, Mom, Dad was late. He doesn't even, why did you have him come? I just sit there with everybody and it was embarrassing. It was stupid. And people were walking by and they saw me, and then here we go. Like, Mom, I can't even have you do one simple task. It was 2:30. I told you 45 times, right? Mm-hmm. And he's like, I got the kid. He's
like,
alive.
That's why I thought 2:45. You told me 45 times. And I was like, oh, 2:45? You should have only told me 30 times.
Right. Right. And so that's a difficult one because it's like on that side of it, I think it makes sense to be mad about that. On the other side, Johnny's alive. The kid's home. And it really what needs to happen is it needs to be placed back on to him.
So this is the tricky thing that we got into in this conversation that I think makes this a really sticky kind of a dynamic, because what we're essentially saying is that we're trying to change the pursue withdraw dynamic, and instead of her, if she's the pursuer, where she's sort of leaning across the aisle, crossing that line or whatever, instead of her withdrawing, that's to the other extreme, we're actually wanting her just to stand straight up, like just hold your ground, right? And give him space so that if he, instead of withdrawing, he, on the other side, is not going to then pursue, because that's the other extreme. We don't want that. But he can also step up and step into this space that she's provided for him without, I guess, letting him off the hook. So there's some accountability, but it's not the same kind of breathing down your neck sort of thing. So let me explain what that means. There are some like natural consequences. So on one side, you're saying, okay, so Johnny was picked up at 2:45 and everyone's okay. Nothing, it's not a huge deal. He's upset, he's embarrassed, whatever. Like that's one of those things where it's like maybe you give space and you allow that to happen. It's like, okay, on the one hand, this wasn't done exactly how I said, but it was done and that's okay. So there are some situations where I think she needs to understand, like, he did the thing, and maybe in time we can work on, like listening more closely or being more specific about this. So like, okay, hey, make sure you remember, whatever. We can work on that, but it got done, so it doesn't need to be a big deal, right? You're splitting hairs at that point and creating conflict that's unnecessary. On the other side, there are situations where it's, okay, let's use this example. Johnny needed to be picked up at 2:30 because he had a dentist appointment at 2:30 because his tooth hurty.
Oh my word!
I was thinking about that.
You did not just do that.
That's dad joke. I was thinking about that.
It's a bad one. Because tooth 30.
Tooth hurty.
Tooth hurty.
That's how you remember it, Dad.
Oh my good Lord.
So let's say he has to get picked up at 2:30 because he has a dentist appointment. And if he's late, you have to reschedule it for like months out. And he's been having some issues or whatever. Or maybe the schedules don't allow that. So Dad's late. And now Johnny can't go to the appointment or it's missed, and now Mom has to get in and like reschedule it, and it's going to mess up their schedule because this is like the only time that could fit in, right? So it's one of those situations where she can't just like allow the natural consequence to happen. She can't, maybe let's change it a little bit. Let's say she could jump in and take Johnny, because he's late or gets held up in a meeting or whatever it is. Like, okay, so on the one hand, either she steps in and she overfunctions and she bails him out, or she just lets it happen, but then she's got all the responsibility to like do all the rescheduling. It's a giant hassle that she already went through, right? So she's rightfully upset. Well, in that case, you can't just sort of let things be, because in this situation, harm was done. There was some damage that happened. And so we're trying to say she needs to also allow some of those consequences to be on dad. But then it's like, well, how do you do that? That's the tricky part. What kinds of consequences do you allow natural ones to happen that are not like you yell at him or you take your anger and frustration out on him? It's okay to tell him that you're frustrated. He did this and you're frustrated or upset by it, disappointed even, but not to take it out on him, because he's going to be seeing and hearing that reaction as the like, whoop, big fire, shut down. We can't deal with those emotions. Reminds me too much of a mother-son dynamic, right? Where I've disappointed mom and now she's mad at me.
Right. And here's the other thing. I mean, you can get emotional. We're not saying that. But the reality is in order to get out of this crazy dynamic, you have to take responsibility for the fact that we did an episode a long time ago. Well, not that long ago, I guess, but being responsible to someone, not for them. You don't have to be responsible for the husband. We're not saying that. You can be mad, but you have to realize that what are you asking him to do? Being responsible to him is taking into account the fact that, okay, I can be mad about this, but if I get too big, nothing's going to change. If he's committed to try to work on something, like we'll say that he has, then you have to trust that he's going to try. You know, like that's it. But there's a point at which it's demoralizing. Then why would he? I mean, it makes no sense.
He's going to fail either way.
Yeah, it's just like it's a complete waste of his time. So on the other side, I would say we can take that same dynamic where he shows up late, right, at 2:45, and the kid is whatever, is mad and embarrassed. And the natural consequence in my mind of that is the wife saying something like, "Hey, look, I get it, you were late, you know, that kind of thing, but you're going to need to go talk to Johnny, because it's one of the reasons why I try to get there when I do is because he does struggle with, you know, whatever's going on with the kids at school. And the way you're coming across to him is that you don't care about him. And I know that's not true, but you're going to need to go talk with him about it." So it makes it more real to what's going on, because it moves it out of the land of I'm picking up my kid from school to I'm a dad. Like I'm being a dad to my son, and I'm making sure that he's getting everything that he needs. It's a totally different, it moves him away from task into role and identity and relationship. Yeah. So that's the thing. And maybe if that was a guiding principle, it might actually help your mind out, because if you look at it and moving from tasks and duties to be performed to relationship and identity and roles, I think that's going to be a bit more helpful than just thinking in terms of trying to organize a task. Because here's the other thing. So you're unsupported, because we've been focused on the lady. You're unsupported, and it's gotten as far as you've decided, okay, I don't really need a husband because apparently you're not going to be one. You can just do these tasks for me. And then he's feeling disconnected because of I guarantee you that he feels that. I guarantee you that he feels that he's no longer a husband. He's a task person who goes out, gets money, comes home, whatever is going on.
Or just does this, does that, fixes this.
Contributes to whatever. However he contributes, that's his value. And then that just keeps getting oriented. And so then he just slowly focuses out over the course of time. And then, the truth is he was raised that way anyway. So this is very comfortable. He can do it. He can do this for a long time. So switching the dynamic over and inviting him back into the marriage that you feel that you're hoping for is actually the direction that you need to go.
And that, I think, as we close this out, is the hard sticking point, I think, for these ladies, because what you said, I think, is really key. It's inviting him, welcoming him even back into relationship. But that's the hard part, because I think for these ladies, they're so hurt, they're so frustrated, they're so angry, they're so resentful. In a certain sense, they don't want him back in a relationship. He doesn't deserve it. He hasn't earned that spot in the relationship. And so that's the internal struggle I think they have to resolve for themselves, which is not going to be easy. And as I say that too, I'm very well aware it's like a whole forgiveness process, I believe, that is it's going to take some time and some processing, probably with friends and the therapist, for the hurt that's happened to release it, maybe to talk with some people about it so that you're not holding on to it or carrying it anymore. And that is going to take some time and be a process. Now, ladies, if you're listening, that's important, because in the next episode, when we talk about the guy's side, you're going to see that he also has a process he's going to need to go through that is going to be him essentially working through the same similar kinds of feelings, but instead of like anger, hurt, resentment, it's shame and fear. And when you want him to just get over something and step up and take initiative, it's like him saying, well, just get over it. Look, I'm contributing now. Why don't you just get over your past hurt? Well, you're like, well, I can't do that, right? Because there's so many years of like you not being supportive that I got to work through and resolve. So it's not as easy as you might think it is. And I want you to keep that in mind, because what you're asking of him is really, in a sense, not fair. You need to understand that this is going to be a process and take some time.
Yeah, I think that in general, you ladies out there, as you're considering this, that you have to consider the greater whole. So when you go into therapy, because I think that that's probably where you're going to end up, the reality is that it's not about, because oftentimes therapy, and so this is for some therapists out there, that it becomes more of like, okay, we'll do this different. Well, okay, no, you pick it. Like it gets into this whole solution-focused type of like task management,
and that's a part of it.
It's just it is a reframe. There might be some of that stuff that needs to happen in the beginning because stuff is just getting dropped out of right. Anger and resentment. But big picture-wise is what we're talking about, is that the emotional connection on that side has to be gone through, and that's where the risk is, because you might get a little bit more that you want task management-wise in therapy, but it's not going to fix anything long-term. So, with that, have a great day.
Dude, that was good.
And also, that last day thing was creepy.
It was creepy.
Yeah.
Very creepy.
I was kind of trying to be a little creepy. Maybe
you
it was
succeeded.
It was probably too creepy.
It was very much. If people are listening, especially if they have the headphones, like.
Maybe some of them got excited.
Doubtful. Maybe the also creepy ones that listen were like, oh, that was my language.
Maybe a trash. Oh, it's way over there. It's got a lid.
Just dump it. Okay, that was cool. Let's keep going, and we'll I'll kind of present the same thing, whatever the situation, just a really condensed version, and then we'll jump over to the guy's side.
Okay, set me up a bit more on the guys when you're on.
Yeah.